this is Stevie Ray. You are listening to another wrestling podcast. Now, can you dig that?
It's time for another wrestling podcast.
The measuring stick just changed around here, buddy. You're looking at
the best there is, the best there was, and the best there ever will be.
They think they got the answers. I change the question.
The cream of the crop.
Nobody does it better.
these are the best in the world, brother. These are the best at what they do.
When we talk about the legends of the sport, there's only two in my book.
Another wrestling podcast.
Another wrestling podcast. Now can you dig that, sucker?
All right, welcome everybody to the holiday edition of another wrestling podcast. This is episode number 87. I'm Jonathan Benjamin.
And I'm Steve, the Heat Miser Credo.
Wow, it is a hot one indeed out there right now.
There's no snow to be seen, Jonathan, and it's almost Christmas. It is Christmas, and there's no snow.
Yeah, I don't know what's happening around here. Somebody has not been good. I'm going to put it all on you and say that you probably had something to do with this. But Steve, before we get into the show today, before we get into all these holiday goodies, I have to tell everybody out there that we are going to be a part of something very awesome on January 22nd, 2016. If you are listening to this right now and you're looking for some after Christmas presents maybe, or some Christmas presents, there's no better gift to give this holiday season than VIP tickets to Global Force Wrestling. It's going to be in our hometown of Poughkeepsie, New York, the Mid-Hudson Civic Center, January 22nd, 2016. Steve, what are we going to be doing at this event?
Jonathan, if you purchase a VIP ticket, which is only $25, which gets you to have free autographs, and you'll be able to get into the arena at 5:30 before anybody else. So VIP will include a question and answer in the ring with Global Force Wrestling superstars prior to the show, Jonathan, including yours truly, Steve Credo, and Jonathan Benjamin. We're going to be moderating this little Q&A, so if you have a question for anybody there that night, we're going to be walking around the ringside. We're going to be taking questions from you, the fans, so make sure you tweet us, Facebook us. Maybe you got some questions ahead of time, or you can't make the show. Let us know. We will ask them there live in person, Jonathan. So it's almost like a live podcast, if you will, right?
Absolutely. And the stars, they haven't announced everybody yet, but the stars that have been announced are huge stars. You're going to want to see this. It is the very first East Coast appearance for Global Force Wrestling. We're going to have Jeff and Karen Jarrett, Sanjay Dutt, Brian Myers, formerly known as Kurt Hawkins, Bobby Roode, Colt Cabana, and many, many more. So stay tuned to another wrestling podcast and Global Force Wrestling. Visit them on the web and buy your tickets now.
That's right, Jonathan. They're all ready to go. And what nothing. Even if you missed a gift on Christmas, you forgot to give somebody something. Hey guys, head on over to MidHudsonCivicCenter.org. Go to GlobalForceWrestling.com. Buy your tickets today. It's a great, I'm sorry I forgot a gift kind of a present. Here's tickets to the show. The Northeast debut of Global Force Wrestling, Jonathan. I couldn't ask for a better gift to give.
And all you local wrestling fans in the tri-state area, I'm going to say go out and buy these tickets. If you want wrestling at the Mid-Hudson Civic Center, this is a great way to show them that we love wrestling. So go out there, buy tickets, and pack the Civic Center for this event. It is January 22nd. What else are you going to be doing in January? There's absolutely nothing going on. So get your tickets now. You'll see us there, and you're going to see some amazing wrestling.
Jonathan, it's getting hot though, man. It's so hot right now. I don't know if it's Christmas, if it's spring, is it summer. What is happening to the world? We're having our own global force warming right now in the world.
Wow, you just went there, didn't you?
That was my segue. So it's heating up, Jonathan. It's too hot for Christmas, but stay tuned because we're going to have a little bit more heat on the show with one half of the former World Tag Team Champions, Harlem Heat. Stevie Ray is going to be in the house, Jonathan.
Big Stevie Ray is joining us today. can't wait to talk to him. Got a lot of questions. Want to find out a little bit about Harlem Heat, but more importantly, I want to talk to Stevie Ray about his singles career, what he's doing now, and maybe what the Booker T and Stevie Ray family does for Christmas. I've always wanted to know what happens with these families for Christmas, so maybe we can ask him some stuff about that.
Yeah, Jonathan. Now, as you saw this little bit of the theme, Jonathan, it's kind of hot for Christmas. The Heat's in the house. Harlem Heat's in the house today, or one half of Harlem Heat. Jonathan, what better topic to talk about than Heat in pro wrestling, huh?
Yeah, it's a great thing. We're going to have to narrow it down a little bit, though, so I think we should start out by maybe just talking about some of the things that caused Heat this year. If you're listening to this podcast right now and you don't know what Heat is, in the professional wrestling world, Heat is basically you've caused an issue with somebody and they're mad at you. You're maybe not getting booked because of it. Maybe the fans don't like you because of something you did personally or professionally. But that's Heat in a nutshell. So, Steve, let's talk. Do you have anything off the top of your head that you can think of that was a hot topic of Heat this year?
Jonathan, man, right off the top, I think if we start at the beginning of last year in 2015, the biggest thing going, I had to think, was Roman Reigns. I mean, everybody booed him as soon as he won. There was even The Rock came out, tried to give him some applause about it, but it was nothing. I don't think nothing could save him winning the Rumble. Nobody wanted him to win the Rumble. It was just one of those things that right guy, wrong time kind of a thing. So I think Roman Reigns had a very heatful year. Well,
it was also kind of a perfect storm for him because of, everybody was expecting Daniel Bryan to come back at that Rumble. So I don't know that the Heat would have been as bad had Daniel Bryan not been, hyped to be there or whatever. I think
that's right, because he got eliminated early on. Yep.
Well, he was, it was just a bad thing for Daniel Bryan, so I think that Roman Reigns, even though he was going to get booed probably anyway, it wouldn't have been as bad. But it continued throughout the year, like you said. They were just really kind of starting to try to push Roman down our throats. And at this point, a lot of the fans said, you know what, I'm just enough. And so they really just booed him. And it wasn't until recently that he kind of climbed that mountain to where fans started to cheer for him. So that is definitely probably number one on the Heatometer this year.
That's right. A Heatometer. I like that, Jonathan. Trademark that. Write that down.
Yeah. Yep. I get a quarter anytime someone says Heatometer.
Jonathan, how about the next biggest? Well, I don't know if it's not the next biggest, but definitely one of the biggest things this year had to do with Eva Marie, Jonathan. It was definitely up there to where, Miss Total Diva, the WWE loves her. They love her look. She looks good on camera. But Jonathan, I mean, she's just not a wrestler, and I think that's what the fans see. They know she injured Carmella this year just from being sloppy in the ring. I don't know, Jonathan. There's a big part about being a wrestler, and that one big part about being a wrestler is that you kind of have to be a wrestler. You have to wrestle. You have to know how to wrestle. And I don't know. Is it safe to say? Definitely can't wrestle, just too new at it, or I don't know. That's what the fans are hating on.
Yeah, if you look at how this happens, though, is they find these people and they basically throw them right to the wolves. And to Eva Marie's credit, and I'll even throw in Cameron, whenever Cameron and Naomi you started to see on the show, she actually went and asked. She said, I need to learn how to wrestle because, I got called up and I was with Brodus and Naomi, and I really don't know how to wrestle. So the same thing happened with Eva. I think she got thrown in really quickly, and all the fans expect by the time you're on the main roster, you should know how to wrestle. But that's not the way that wrestling works anymore. It's an entertainment product, and everybody has to remember that. But Eva Marie even went and started to try to learn more from Brian Kendrick, the Brian Kendrick, as a matter of fact. And I know that she's not the greatest, but you should give her some time and see what happens. The fans just absolutely hate her. There were 1,000 times when she went back down to NXT and everybody was just booing her so much that they had to pretty much wait until the boos stopped so she could talk. So everybody really really was not on the Eva Marie wagon this year, but maybe 2016 will be her year. I don't know.
Jonathan, here I think the one biggest gripe I think is that, if you're in the WWE, you should technically be the best of the best, kind of the pick of the litter, whatever you want to call it, whatever we want to phrase it. But it's like, she's in the WWE for her looks. Let's just throw it out there. That's why she's there. But I think they're just taking her and trying to make her a wrestler on TV is probably the worst thing they could do. If it was like behind the scenes and she was doing it for, a few years or something, because, guys bust their ass to make it to the WWE. And when they put her on TV and it's so horrible, so sloppy to points to where she's injuring people, it's kind of like, all right, maybe we shouldn't have her wrestle anymore on TV until she's really fine-tuned and has been doing it a while. And I don't know, I think that's the hardcore fans out there, they love the art, they love the wrestling, they love, the whole experience of it. But when you have somebody that's almost kind of shitting on their stuff, to where it's like, oh, just because I look good, that just automatically means I can become a top WWE wrestler. And that's where I think a lot of the fans just hate it. And I don't know. I don't think she'll ever outgrow it, Jonathan. Do you think she could become a decent wrestler in a few years and people will forget about it? Or will this heat forever remain with her? I don't know.
Yeah, it's gonna not only depend on what she does in the future, but what the fans think in the future. Because right now I know they paired her with Nia Jax, and that's helping Nia Jax get some of that heat that they want her to have as a heel. But I think that Eva Marie, she can't. Let's just put it this way: I don't think she can get any worse. So if she kind of just eats crap for a while and takes it, then maybe someday she'll overcome what's happened and be, a viable part of the Divas division. This year, Divas have been on everybody's mind. Everybody's been talking about it. It's been such a big year. And I think that's also why there's so much criticism of Eva Marie, because you have some of the best wrestling going on in the women's division right now. And then with Eva Marie, you have some of the worst. And I think, admittedly, she would probably even say that she's not that great and she's got a long way to go. But I'm not ready to count her out yet. I think that she's almost. And look what happened to The Rock. It's a completely different situation. But The Rock came in. He was a good guy. Everybody liked him for a second. Then they turned on him. They booed him, and it made him a lot better. I don't know if this is going to make her a lot better or not, but it's definitely a sink or swim moment for Eva Marie.
Yeah, definitely. All right, guys, and once again, I want to remind everybody, too, listening to me and Jonathan yammer back and forth, professionally produce these quality shows. Let us know what you think. Make sure you head on over to anotherwrestlingpodcast.com. Tweet us, Facebook us, all that stuff. Reach out to us, email us, whatever you want to do. We'll respond. We want to get you, to be a part of the show as much as possible. And don't forget, you can call us any time of the week, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 802-AWP-7672. That's 802-297-7672. Leave us a message. We'll play the best calls on the show. But guys, gals, everybody listening, don't forget to head on over to anotherwrestlingpodcast.com for all AWP related matters, Jonathan. Jonathan, what else on the heatometer can we talk about?
Well, somebody who was no stranger to heat this year was Brad Maddox, the former Raw GM and WWE competitor. Got in some trouble. He was in Indianapolis, Indiana, my old stomping grounds, and during a dark match, he came out and started to make fun of the Indianapolis Colts because he is a Carolina Panthers fan, and he ended up saying that the Indianapolis Colts were cocky pricks. The next day, he was released from his WWE tenure. So
That's
I'm assuming,
ridiculous.
I'm assuming that that was not the way to go, and that there was a lot of heat on Brad Maddox. He is now Mad Braddox, which is amazing, but he's still got heat because they sent him a cease and desist letter, him and Pro Wrestling Tees, about his new line of T-shirts. So I don't know what became of that because WWE thought that was their intellectual property because he's Mad Braddox instead of Brad Maddox. But we'll see how that turns out. But do you think that was too far, or do you think that WWE, kind of took it too far?
I think it's definitely taken it too far. I mean, for somebody to be fired over that when there's been a lot more crazy offenses happening in the WWE, to where it's one of those things to where everybody is walking on thin ice in there because it's probably just hard to say I'm going to fire this guy. Well, you can't just fire him for whatever, because that could lead to lawsuits, this and that, who knows, whatever. But it was one of those things where he said something, they could fine tune it to say, oh, well, as a part of your contract, you're not allowed to say that, or I don't know what the exact details are, but it was just one thing. They pissed somebody off. They needed more money coming in. They got rid of him so that they could bring somebody else into the system. So it's just one of those things, man. It's like everybody's walking on thin ice. You know what I mean? Anything you do, no matter what you say, what you tweet, any little thing, that you can do, they'll use it against you, apparently, and that right there just goes to show you that, well, Brad Maddox is a prime example of that.
Yeah, and another person that not necessarily tweets or anything like that, but got a lot of heat this year was Nikki Bella. Now, Nikki just won a Slammy for Diva of the Year. I know there was a lot of people that thought it should have went to somebody else. If you go back and listen, I did predict that Nikki was going to win, so I'm basically a modern day Nostradamus is what I'm trying to tell you, Steve. But no, I think that she got a lot of heat this year because she beat AJ Lee's Divas Championship record. Now, that was one of those things that seemed to me, and outside looking in, it seemed to be a dig at CM Punk and or AJ Lee for letting her, when Punk left, they said, well, you know what, Nikki, you're going to continue to be this until you break the record. So I don't know that it was Nikki's idea. Nikki probably just went with it. And then there's also the heat that Nikki's the champion because of John Cena or whatever. But Nikki has put in the work. I'm definitely a Bella believer. I think that Nikki's pretty awesome this year. And but I don't know. What do you think about the whole AJ Lee thing?
It's another thing too. I mean, like, if you're gonna have somebody pass somebody's record, it should be somebody who's actually a big fan favorite, or just maybe somebody who can at least wrestle. You're a believer. I'm sorry. I just can't jump on the bandwagon with the Bellas. I will give them credit that they've improved throughout the years from when they first started. But compared to the girls coming in now, like Sasha Banks and Paige, and just all the NXT girls coming up, they look like amateurs compared to what the girls are doing today. And I don't know. I wouldn't have given Nikki Bella to break the reins and to have that title. I don't know. I could definitely see where it caused heat and all that stuff. But I mean, I don't know, man. It's one of those things to where I hated it. It got heat from me, Jonathan. Because when you're looking at Nikki Bella being the champ, not really. She has. I forget the exact thing it was to where how many times she actually defended her Divas Championship, and it was like twice out of 6 months or something like that. To where if you have this unbeatable record or whatever, you should be defending it every night, every week, or every month on a pay-per-view. And it wasn't even defended monthly on a pay-per-view. So it's like, it's one of those asterisks in the records book for Nikki Bella, to where, yeah, she just held on to it and she didn't really do anything with it. And I'm sorry, yeah, you're not going to find any sympathy from me for this whole thing.
Wow. Well, tell us how you really feel there, Steve.
I know there's really no, because if they didn't have this whole Divas Revolution, then I don't know. I'd probably find a way to kind of okay that Nikki Bella is the champ and all that stuff, but it was just pissing me off because when you're seeing, like I said, like those girls coming in, knowing that they're better wrestlers, and she's getting the longest reigning Divas Championship title, it's just kind of silly. And it's definitely one of those things where somebody was bitter backstage that AJ Lee left, so it was like, well, we're just gonna erase her name with somebody else, and that somebody else happened to be her, I guess. Bah, humbug.
So this one was a little strange for me, but it definitely is a heat-seeking missile, it seems. Kevin Owens came into NXT to a lot of fanfare. A lot of people knew him as Kevin Steen, loved him. He had a great run down there, was beating up everybody, started a feud with Sami Zayn, become the NXT champion, came to WWE. He actually beat John Cena, which was a feat that no one saw coming. Had a good time with him, but then all of a sudden, people within the WWE, it was made apparent that they had a problem with Kevin Owens' weight. They said that, he needed to lose weight or whatever. And so it was bad enough, but the announcers said stuff about it. Randy Orton made comments about it, whether he was instructed to or not. So Kevin Owens' weight was a big topic of discussion backstage, apparently. To me, I think that it only makes the WWE better. I don't like when everybody looks the exact same. Mm-hmm. There needs to be small people, tall people, big people, little people, whatever you want to say to get this going. In the WWE, there shouldn't be a mold. And Kevin Owens is awesome. His wrestling speaks for itself. It's a little bit disheartening to me that you've got somebody who is definitely over with the crowd. He's selling huge numbers of merchandise, and yet they're still nitpicking at him. So I am not a fan of what they were doing and, weight shaming him, I guess. And I think he kind of got back at it. He's very vocal on Twitter, which was awesome. I know he got back at some of the people that were saying stuff, and even eventually ended up blocking Melissa Joan Hart, not for the weight comments, but just she said he was lazy. So I think he can definitely stand up for himself, and I think it's awesome. I just think it's a little sad that in this day and age that people are weight shaming someone who is a legitimate superstar.
No, yeah, definitely, and that's what makes him an awesome superstar, is that he doesn't look like, the typical bodybuilder, this and that. He came in his debut match on Raw. He beat John Cena clean. You know what I mean? Or he beat him. That's a big deal, I think, for anybody's debut match for anything. He doesn't have all these crazy muscles. He doesn't have, he's a brawler, man. That's what he's supposed to look like. He looks like a wrestler. And that's it, Jonathan. You can't keep the same cookie-cutter mold because you have guys like Ryback who are big and strong but still lack that charisma, lack that mic skill that, just because you got a look doesn't mean you can actually talk or whatever. And, Kevin Owens, he doesn't need he has his own look, you know what I mean? Like, he's fine. He's a great wrestler. He's a great talker. He's the total package, even though he's not your total package, WWE or whoever of Mr. 12 packs or 6 packs of abs and 24-inch pythons and all that other crap. But, I think that's what's great, like you said about him, is that, he doesn't fit that mold and he still, does what he does. And it's fine, man. He has a huge fan base of just because, and I can't believe that a little thing like that is, people are talking about, where even I remember Randy Orton made fun of his weight on camera and this and that, and I'm like, come on, really? I think you're going to piss more people off talking about his weight than you will, just talking about him as a wrestler, as a character. It just doesn't make sense. And it's like, okay, you're going to be making fun of him, but meanwhile, this is the same company that gives us Los Matadores and a little midget bull. So I don't think they should be talking about this guy's weight. You know what I'm saying?
I completely agree with you, Steve. There's been a lot of heat in the WWE and around professional wrestling this year. If you would like to tweet us maybe something that we didn't mention or comment on something that we did mention, please be sure to do that at A Wrestling POD. That's A Wrestling Pod. Steve, we scratched the surface on this. We could talk about Hulk Hogan and his infamous comments that got him banned from the WWE. We could even talk about another WWE Hall of Famer, Donald Trump, and some of the things that he said this year. And, we can go as far as talking about Seth Rollins' girlfriend and some of the things that someone dug up on a former Twitter account that weren't so PC. So I think right now, though, we should get into our today's interview. And, Steve, do you want to let us know again who we're speaking with today?
Well, Jonathan, we're keeping the heat of a hot Christmas rolling as we bring in one half of Harlem Heat, Stevie Ray.
He's a 20-plus year veteran of the wrestling business, a former world champion, as well as a 10-time WCW Tag Team Champion. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Stevie Ray.
How's it going, guys?
It's going good. How you doing today?
Pretty good.
Now, Stevie, you started your wrestling career in a much different and more difficult time in history. Do you ever regret your decision to become a pro wrestler?
No.
All right.
No. Becoming a professional wrestler was pretty difficult to do back in those days, and you had to really work hard at it. So it wasn't like something that you do and kind of like slip into it. You had to really put forth some effort to be a professional wrestler back in those days. So when you made the decision to do it, you had to be committed to do it.
Absolutely. Now, you started your wrestling career in the great state of Texas. You traveled all over the world wrestling, but what makes wrestling in Texas different from all those other places in the world?
Frankly, I don't know. Texas is just one of those places where geographically, where wrestling flourishes because you got so many multicultural type different avenues and so on and so forth. Here, like West Texas, East Texas, Southwest Texas, North Texas, and you have so many different kinds of areas that kind of like just relish the platform, like Wahoo McDaniel's from Midland, and you have the Funks from like West Texas, and like people like me and my brother from Southwest Texas, and then you have people like Jose Lothario from way south, and you have the Von Erichs from the North Texas. So geographically, it always gave, whatever you were, black, white, green, or other, you was always represented in the state of Texas. And I think that's why it flourished.
All right. Now, Texas has produced a lot of pro wrestling talent over the years. Do you personally have some favorites that come from the Lone Star State?
Well, when you're growing up here in Texas, you got favorites, like I mentioned, Wahoo McDaniel, you know what I'm saying? And Jose Lothario, those were two of the greats back in the day, Mm-hmm. One Native American and one Hispanic. And they were over with everybody, and that's two names right there, and there's a zillion more to follow. So, yeah.
Now, when you first broke into the business, did you have like a specific goal in mind, or you just wanted to get in there and make a name for yourself?
No, we just want to become professional wrestlers, period. This notion of gimmicks and all that kind of stuff, nobody cared about that kind of shit. You just went out there and want to learn the craft as much as possible. That's one thing that we kind of focused on because of Scott Casey, who trained us. As far as gimmicks and all that kind of stuff, that kind of shit never got anybody over. What got you over was what you were doing in the ring. And learning as much as you could about the ring, learning how to tell a story, learning how to follow, how to communicate, how to tell a story in the ring, things of that nature. The things that you see now wasn't even prevalent back in those days, not from the area that we came from. All that came later. But, if you didn't patch the skills of, not doing what you were doing in the ring, you didn't get in the ring. It was that simple.
Sure. Now, after gaining a lot of singles success, you teamed up with your brother Booker T. Did you ever imagine when you guys started out that you would gain the type of success that you did?
We never had any inklings to be a tag team, ever. The Harlem Heat thing came. Excuse me, I've been kind of under the weather. The Harlem Heat thing came, but no, we had no inklings of being tag team wrestlers whatsoever. What we wanted to be was professional wrestlers. And we did shows. Sometimes we did shows together. Sometimes we did those separate, so on and so forth. The Harlem Heat thing came from Eddie Gilbert putting us together because I was going down to Global to get a tryout, and my brother went with me. He didn't know I had a brother, and he got a bulb flashed off in his head, and he made us a tag team.
All right.
Now, Harlem Heat had a reputation of being a very rough and tough tag team. Did you ever hear of any other tag teams not wanting to work with you guys due to being so intimidated by you?
Yeah, we heard a few things like that, but that's just, a lot of fucking people that, they were looking more at the from the outside in than from the inside out. And we had a very, aggressive style, when we first, especially when we first came into WCW. And that was just our style. But it was not. It was more of simulated than emulated. So, and I don't know, some people are very, very rough in the ring deliberately. We never were. Nobody can ever say they got in the ring with Harlem Heat and Harlem Heat actually stiffed them on purpose. Nobody. If they can't show him to me, and I'll call him a lie right to his face. But we knew exactly what we were doing in the ring.
Now, recently in the WWE, we've seen some teams unite for one more run. Do you think the Harlem Heat would fare with today's competition? Or how do you think they would fare with today's competition?
Like who?
Oh, well, we got like the Usos. Anybody going today? I don't know, whether it be WWE or wherever.
I think back in our day, these tag teams wouldn't even been able to break into the top 20. I mean, to be honest, the Usos, they jump around a lot, but, back in our days, brother, you had to be more than just a spot match guy.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? Anybody can do a spot match. You know what I'm saying? And do 50,000 different spots in a match, and nobody ever take you serious. Let me tell you something. When Harlem Heat came out the curtain, the whole building took us serious.
Absolutely.
It wasn't about just the look. It was about the whole image. Mm-hmm. And people always would stop me in the airport and go, man, I know you're a nice guy, man, but on TV, man, you look so mean. You know what I'm saying? I was really reluctant to come up and ask you, could I get an autograph or shake your hand or something like that. That's when when people actually see you in person and go, I don't know if I would really want to mess with that guy. Yeah. You understand what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
That's a whole nother genre than a bunch of spots. Take nothing away from me, so I love the kids. But totally different era. You had to look the part and be the part. You know what I'm saying? In those days. And the 5, 6, 7 minute spot matches that you see on television now, they're great to look at. It's just like doing a guitar riff in a concert, but that the guitar that you really didn't. Well, when you leave that concert, would you really remember that riff?
Exactly.
Because that guitar riff really didn't say anything. Mm-hmm. If you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Now, obviously, Harlem Heat, for most fans, they're definitely in the top 10 tag teams of all time. Once again, you didn't really ever see yourself as a tag team, but how does that make you feel that you guys are regarded as one of the greatest tag teams in the history of professional wrestling?
Well, the thing was, even though we didn't see it coming back in the day, once it happened, we went out of our way to try to be the best we could possibly be. So it was no accident that if we were going to be a tag team, and these were conversations me and my brother had amongst each other, if we were going to be a tag team, we wanted to be the the focal point of tag team wrestling. And I think we accomplished that. Because at that time, tag team wrestling was really dormant in the early 90s. You know, you was coming out of the 80s where tag team wrestling was really prevalent. And then it started to take a nosedive because, you know, the business started to change somewhat. And some of the teams have been around for a while. And you know how the wrestling business is. It takes its toll on a lot of people, you know, physically and mentally, you know, with you know, just the lifestyle. Then all of a sudden, you know, you got Harlem Heat on the scene. Two African-American guys that don't represent the African-American guy that's been represented in this business for the last 20 years. Totally different from any of them. Mm-hmm. These guys represent today. And that was one thing we did collectively. We did it, you know, on purpose. We wouldn't, you know, because we got asked to do 20,000 different other things. Can you do this? Can you do this? Can you dance? Can you do a headbutt? No, we can't do none of that fucking dumb black man shit that y'all been having people do for the last fucking 50 years. No, we don't do that. We do this. Take it or leave it. And once we knew we got into a position whereas we could go work somewhere else, then we really started to implement what we want to do. With the way we dress, the way we talk, the way we walk, the way we work in the ring. And we knew we had something special. So then that's when other tag teams started kind of like, even back in Global, when we were babyface tag team, people loved it. People loved it. So when we turned heel in WCW, we were just trying to parlay what we already started. And we were a great babyface tag team, we can be a great heel tag team the same way. We're just going to turn the things around a little bit. And we knew by we being trained by Scott Casey, he had already informed us on a whole bunch of things that were going to happen or things that would come up by us being African Americans. So we were already ready for it. So that's how we approached it, and that's how it went down.
Sure. Now, Stevie, during your career, you were also managed by Sherry Martel. Were you guys skeptical about being paired with her and just, you know, having a manager?
We actually asked for that. They wanted us to have a manager. Me and my brother didn't want a manager. I was telling this story to somebody not too long ago. We didn't want a manager. But like I said, that's the way people that run the wrestling business look at the African-American wrestler. They need someone to talk for them. I don't need anyone to talk for me. That's what I went to school for. I know how to talk. I wanted to be in radio. So if I can't do anything else, I know how to choose my words carefully and perfectly. That's what I do. My brother, the same thing. So just because you see us the way we talk as professional wrestlers, that's not how we talk on a day-to-day basis. We know how to communicate, you know, and we know how to eloquate what we're trying to say. Mm-hmm. So it's actually insulting to us, but we didn't take it personal. We know how. That's just how people are. They don't know any better because that's all they've been around. They're trained to thought that way because, you know, the social upbringing, so on and so forth, and been in this wrestling business. So, you know, and we know that. So we was intelligent enough to think around it and get around it. But be it as it may, no, we were just trying to figure out a way to tell them. They put us in the studio with different people, you know, probably somebody's buddy that was on the payroll. That's how WCW did shit, you know, so, you know, to keep somebody with a job because he can't work with the shit, let's put him out there as a wrestler, you know, a manager for Harlem Heat, that kind of bullshit, you know, so.
Sure.
You know, these are just some of the things that's chronicled in the professional wrestling world that nobody actually talks about. I personally don't give a shit, but I just tell it like it is, and that's what it was. And we resented it, actually. No, we didn't get upset or anything like that. It's just the fact that, you know, this is the entity that you're dealing with on a day-to-day basis. So, you know, we were just trying to figure out a way to tell them, hey, we don't want a manager. We don't want this Paul Ellering shit or this Midnight Express stuff or all this other stuff you see in these guys. You know, they sit in the background and don't say nothing while one guy sitting there spewing all kind of bullshit out of his mouth about, you know, and that's good for them.
Yeah.
Wasn't good for us. You know, so one day we were doing a TV taping, and I can't even remember what it was, Gainesville, Georgia, or something. Don't quote me on that, but it was one of the towns, and I remember us going in the building rather, and we seen Sherry, you know, and we used to always speak to her, stuff like that. And we walked up on her. She was sitting, and guys putting the ring up and all that kind of stuff, you know, early in the daytime. And we go, "Hey, Sherry, what's going on?" She's like, "Hey, guys, what's happening?" So I hear y'all looking for a manager. We thinking she kind of like ribbing us, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. And we were like, yeah, we are. And she was like, "How's that going?" And my brother looked at us like, "Man, really and truly, we don't really like it. But that's what they want to do. But we're trying to figure out a way to tell them that we don't want to do it." And then she was like, "Well, what about me? What if I was you guys' manager?" And we thought she was kidding. And we like, "What?" And she's like, "Yeah, I could be you guys' manager, you know. What do you think?" And me and my brother was just ecstatic. You know what I'm saying? We was just like,
sure.
Holy, really, really? Because we were big fans of hers. You know what I'm saying?
Uh-huh.
And, excuse me, that's where the whole Harlem Heat and Sherry came from. That's what that conversation right there.
Wow.
Then we took the powers of being, everybody liked it, and boom, the rest is history.
That's awesome. Now, obviously we have to fast forward through time here, but towards the end of your career in WCW, you started to work commentary, and were just amazing at it. But was that something that you had interest in before, or did somebody just put you in that spot?
Actually, like I said, that's actually what I went to school for. And what I used to do was commentate in the dressing rooms. I would do commentary, me and my brother sometimes, and sometimes me by myself, sometimes depending on who was in the dressing room at the time. But while we had monitors in the dressing room, but they had no sound. And we'd be watching a Nitro or Thunder or a regular TV taping or something like that. And the video guys would hook up a monitor in there so we can see the matches as we sitting in the dressing room. So we would commentate matches for all the guys. And everybody thought it was so funny. So somebody told Vince Russo, because they were looking to put a wrestler in to do commentary with the announcers. I didn't sign up for it, and Vince Russo, I remember I was in what's the name of that town? Salt Lake City, Utah. And I got we were doing some house shows up that way, and I got a message at my hotel to be at the show Monday, and I was off Monday, and I was like, I was looking so forward to being off. So it said, you coming in for a tryout. I was like, oh man. So I go, they sent me, changed my ticket, and I can't remember where the show was, but I go and supposed to go in the studio early that day, and that got canceled. And then I was supposed to do it at the building, and that got canceled. And I was like, well, and I get pulled Vince, and I finally see Vince. And Vince, they canceled both of the deals. I'm supposed to be getting a tryout for this thing. I guess it was other people involved too. I guess he was like, no, I decided to put you out there tonight. You going on TV tonight as announced. I was like, what? Oh man, this thing went from bad to worse. So I wasn't really prepared to do it, but then I just kind of resorted back to my DJ days and stuff like that, and week after week I get better and better and start implementing. I just told him I can't do it the way Stevie Ray would do it, but I can use a part of him and a part of myself together and do it that way. And they was like, okay, do that. And that was the rest of history on that.
Your brother Booker T is commentating now in WWE. He's got some pretty good lines, shucky ducky, quack quack, and some various other ones. But Sucka's Gots to Know, did you teach him any of those lines?
No. Did I teach my brother any lines?
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of times he calls me and asks me about certain things because he knows I'm a history buff.
Yep.
And I will pull things out of the air when it comes to history. And I gave him one about the Edsel. I don't know if you guys heard that one night. He was talking about the three, not three. What's it? The Dudleys.
Oh, yep.
He said, the Dudleys were good in their day, but so was the Edsel. I told him, like back in the day, everything used to be carbureted, but now everything's fuel injected. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
You got to keep up. So I remember him. So he called me on a couple of things like that before,
Nice.
and I gave him those.
Well, do you think you'd ever like to call matches alongside your brother in WWE?
I don't see why not.
I think it'd be awesome.
I don't see why not. Actually, they were going to bring me up a few months back for a tryout for something on the network, but they ended up giving it to someone else. But they did ask me about that. Would I be willing to come in for something like that?
Sure.
But no, the stuff that I didn't know that the stuff I was saying on television was getting that kind of credence. I didn't know it until certain I was, at times be riding down the street, and kids would pull up beside me and say stuff like, hey, suckers got to know, or slapjack, or squack, or you know what I'm saying, all this stuff, and I'm like, what the hell? I was like, when you meet people, the first thing they say is one of the, one-liners that come out of your mouth. And I was like, wow, man, people taking notice of this? This is just stuff I say on a daily basis with my friends.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But few friends of mine, you know what I'm saying, these are certain little things that we say to each other. And I started saying them on television. And and then the suckers got to know thing, I think that was that's from a movie. From a movie, but I changed it up. It was from a movie, JFK.
Okay.
When the character, William Keith, they went to jail to see him, and he was telling them that he seen these people at a party that he was at, and he said, hey, people got to know that this man was a communist. And I just changed it to, hey, you suckers got to know.
That's great.
That's where that came from, because I used to love that movie, So, I don't know. But yeah, I would be interested in something like that. It's fun. It's fun when you know how to keep up and you can be witty at the same time.
Sure. Now, Stevie, speaking of WWE, it was announced earlier that you signed a Legends deal with WWE. Can you give us any details on what that could mean in the future? And do you know if we're going to see any more Stevie Ray action figures or maybe even a DVD in the works?
Well, possibly. Actually, it opens the doors up for a whole bunch of different things concerning, memorabilia and things of that nature. So, as of right now, yeah, like the new game that just came out, me and my brother are on that together. So it could lead to a lot more things. Yes, that's 100% true.
Awesome. Now, during your career, you got to witness some of wrestling's the highest points and obviously some of the low points of the business as well. You're highly involved still with wrestling, here and there, but what do you think about the current state of professional wrestling? There's a lot of people that are bashing it these days. Do you think it's just, kind of that time period, or do you think that wrestling's really in trouble?
I think wrestling is just like everything else. It has to keep up with the times and things, and it has to morph and change with the times, and I think that's what it's doing. So I think professional wrestling has a different level of appreciation from the fans as to the hardcore fans from the days of the past. Not any less, but I think it's too many people involved in, just the existence of wrestling as to it is today. And what I mean by that is too many people that think they're involved in wrestling, that they're really not involved in wrestling, and they profess to, which gives a really obscure way of certain people how they look at wrestling, especially with, like even these podcasts, like what you guys do. Even all the different media outlets that talk about it on a day-to-day basis, and evaluate it on a day-to-day basis. So in all actuality, to me, that zaps a lot of the real fiction out of it, because of so many people making all these predictions. Professional wrestling was always something you waited to see what the big new thing was going to be, or the big new surprise and things like that. And sometimes I think now the surprise is killed, because somebody don't like the surprise. They just bury it in social media. So wrestling is kind of like fighting a two-headed sword right now, especially going through the metamorphosis that it's going through right now, just with the way times are changing. Because everything changes. You look at the way football is right now, and how it's morphed. You look at the way basketball, even movies on television, the superhero movies. The superhero used to be a bad, just a bad guy going against a bad guy. Now it's just like you look at all the characters now. They look at somebody that just all of them look like people that just came out of Starbucks.
Yep.
Seriously, you know what I'm saying?
Sure. Yep.
There's nothing serious about the look anymore. Every movie that's on right now is sex related. It's got to have some kind of sexual content to it, just for it to get over. So the human mind is being swayed and portrayed in so many, such a different way now. People don't know if they're going or coming. So to me, that's unfortunate, and professional wrestling, by the fact that it falls into mainstream media also, it's going to go through that same thing. A professional wrestler, a female professional wrestler has to look like a porn star to be a professional wrestler now.
Yeah.
If you look at all the professional wrestlers out there, in my era, everybody was, as big as Stevie Ray. A lot of guys were as big as Stevie Ray. You know what I'm saying? 6'5" guy, 300-pound guy. That was an everyday guy. Now, so when I walk through an airport, people go, and I had people come up to me and say this. This is so true and so stupid at the same time. And somebody go, you got to be somebody. And don't even know me.
Yeah.
They never seen me.
Yeah.
You got to be somebody. You know what I'm saying? Now you can see wrestlers walk through an airport and they look like regular people because they're regular size.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? That's the evolution of what I'm saying. The evolution of professional wrestling. Taking nothing away from nobody, but I'm just saying the image of professional wrestling used to be a superhero look. Like that, you know what I'm saying? That's, I remember when I was a kid, my first seen Superstar Billy Graham for the first time live in person. I never forget that to the day I die. Never have I ever seen a man this muscular, so tall, so big. It was just like, holy shit, all my friends, this is elementary school now. We go back to school like, man, did you see this? Man, we got to see Superstar Billy Graham, telling all our other friends, you know what I'm saying? Because Roy was getting interviewed at downtown Houston. We got close to the stage and could see him. I'll never forget that. You know what I'm saying? So that's the evolution of the entertainment business, and wrestling just happened to be a part of it, to me. And I think that's what wrestling is going through. You got too many critics. You got too many Indians and not enough Indian chiefs, man. I just don't know.
Yeah, it's just so, like you were saying, there's so much out there that kind of, it's not hidden anymore, and with everybody, I guess you can't please everybody, and that's really kind of where it lies.
Lightning round.
What do you think the greatest foreign object in the history of professional wrestling is?
My favorite was Ted DiBiase's glove.
The coal miner's glove?
I don't know what kind of glove it was. No, it wasn't a coal miner's glove.
Okay.
It was just a loaded glove that he would pull out and hit people with.
Okay.
I loved it.
What's the most important lesson you learned on the road? Is there one thing you could tell everybody?
Be aware of your surroundings.
What's a typical Harlem Heat holiday like? When you and your brother get together, what happens during this time of year?
I don't know. We do Christmas at someone's house, one of the relatives' house, and it's just family, friends, and things like that, and people getting together and eating, talking, and everything else, just like anybody else.
No one's going through a table or anything like that.
The thing about me, I've never brought wrestling home with me.
Yeah.
Everybody in my family knows if you want to talk about wrestling, don't talk with me about it. I really ain't got nothing to say about it. Now, my brother, on the other hand, that's him. He might want to talk about it, but I don't even give wrestling one of my breaths when I'm not wrestling or around the business. When I'm around my family, I'm around my family. And the last thing I want to talk about is wrestling. It ain't never been that serious to me.
Yeah, do you have one favorite memory from WCW, your time there?
That's a good question, man. That's a very good question. But I think one of the best memories I had is when Johnny B. Bad gave my brother a birthday party at his house. I mean, he invited us to dinner at his house, and some kind of way he found out it was my brother's birthday, and he had a cake and the whole thing, you know what I'm saying? It was me, him, his wife, his stepdaughter, and I think that was about it. And we sit there and talked all night, man. He was showing us some of his old box because Mark Merrill used to be a Golden Girls boxer in New York. And we sit there and talk about boxing, and because me and my brother, huge boxing fans and stuff like that. And I'll never forget that, man. He's a good guy. He's always was a good guy, and to this day, I still consider him a good friend.
Awesome.
Now, we talked about it a little bit earlier. You were the king of catchphrase. What is your favorite Stevie Ray catchphrase that you've used over the years?
Probably suckers got to know.
That's definitely got to be it.
I think that's the one most people like. But that was my favorite.
Everybody's got social media. Everybody's got websites and stuff. Is there anything that you can tell us? Do you for fans to get in contact with you, or do you have T-shirts or anything like that? Where can find?
You know what? We just did the Razzlecade a couple of weeks ago, and I had so many people coming up to me saying, "Do you have any Slapjack T-shirts? Do you have any T-shirts with this on it or something suckers got to know?" And I'm like, wow, man, I never thought about making any. But it put a bug in my ear, I think I'm gonna have some made, and I think I'm gonna see what happens, man. That's something I'm gonna get to work on here in the near future.
All right. Well, we want to thank you so much for coming on. You, like I said, 20 plus years in the business, legend in and out of the ring, and we just can't thank you enough for coming on the show today.
No problem, man. Appreciate it.
Right now, I want to talk about our friends over at ProWrestlingCrate.com. If you have not seen this yet, be sure to follow them on social media at PWCrate on Twitter and at Pro Wrestling Crate on Instagram. This is an amazing idea. You get monthly pro wrestling related gifts in the mail in one single box. The first month it was Mick Foley. The second month it was ECW, the Philly area hardcore wrestling, and the January Pro Wrestling Crate is going to be all about kayfabe news. So it's going to be an amazing crate, and each crate comes with T-shirts. It's got coasters. It's got koozies, bottle openers, pins, stickers, you name it. It's in there. It's all wrestling related, and each crate, the proceeds go to a specific charity. So you can't beat that. If you didn't get that gift for the holidays, give yourself the gift of Pro Wrestling Crate. And once again, go to ProWrestlingCrate.com for all the information.
That's right, Jonathan. And we just spoke with Stevie Ray. And as you guys know, there's also the world of YouTube. Make sure you head on over to youtube.com/another wrestling pod, and you guys can catch up on all the old interviews you haven't seen. There's a lot of new stuff exclusively for our YouTube page. We have exclusive YouTube interviews. We have live events of us interviewing wrestlers. So there's a lot of goodies over at our YouTube page. So make sure you subscribe to us on there at youtube.com/another wrestling pod. Jonathan, we're talking Heat, man. It's a hot Christmas right now. We have one half of Harlem Heat on today. We talked about a lot of Heat in pro wrestling. Let's keep the ball rolling. We talked a lot about what happened this year, kind of. What about past Heat, Jonathan? What was some of the stuff that happened in the past? And I think one of the big things that comes to mind is the X-Pac Heat. Everybody always hears it. Marks talk about it all the time. Jonathan, could we explain what this X-Pac Heat is?
Absolutely. This is it's a little hard to explain, but X-Pac Heat comes from when fans booze or like, they insult a wrestler, not because they hate that person's character, but they actually dislike the performer. So when someone comes out and, let's just use X-Pac as the example. X-Pac, he had a lot of momentum. He was in the WWF, WCW, then came back to WWE. He did a lot of big things, but there's just a point when people didn't like him anymore. I would almost say at some points John Cena had some X-Pac heat. I would say Roman Reigns even had some X-Pac heat, but not to the actual degree that X-Pac had. This was coming at a lot of time where, somebody can have bad matches or overexposed, or just not caring about the outcome of the performer. So this came at a time when X-Pac came back, and it just really wasn't that exciting. So that's where the term X-Pac Heat comes from. So that is definitely a pretty cool thing in the world of wrestling, when I guess it probably wasn't too cool for him, but it's another layer of fandom. So the fans not only dislike the character that you portray in wrestling, but they just dislike the person as well.
That's right. Jonathan, I remember speaking with you probably during one of our July 4th episodes about, patriotism and stuff like that in wrestling. But talk about Heat. I think we have to talk about this briefly because Sergeant Slaughter, man, he was receiving death threats during his Iraqi sympathizer run. I don't know if there's any kind of heat that you could get of portraying, being an Iraqi sympathizer during a war going on. Poor Sergeant Slaughter, because there's no worse kind of heat than the fans actually trying to kill you after each show.
Yeah, that was crazy. I saw it was like the history of WrestleMania or something. They were talking about how, Sergeant Slaughter came out of an arena and Vince grabbed him and said, like, listen, everything's okay, but we just moved your wife and kids out of your house because there was a threat that it was going to get blown up. And like, how do you go on after that? Like we put him in a hotel room. Everything's fine. It's like, to hell with that. Everything's not fine if I'm getting, death threats, whatever. They went as far as to like saying that, Saddam Hussein had sent him a boot. And it was really crazy. It was probably way ahead of its time, I would say. Yeah. And, it continued later on with the likes of, Muhammad Hassan, and, that happened after the terrible events of 9/11. So yeah. It's crazy. It's all what's relevant in the news and stuff, but that is definitely something that he was probably one of the biggest heat getters, of the time. But,
yeah, man. We talked earlier about Eva Marie and stuff, but I wouldn't go as far as to give her death threats because of that. That's making your character such a heel that pretty much all of America hates you. That's pretty good. That's pretty good heat, man. I don't know. That was insane.
Yeah, and that's you said that's the whole country is hating you. It's similar to when Shawn Michaels was going against Bret. After Montreal, during Montreal, all of those types of things. Anytime they would go to Canada, Bret Hart was cheered, and when they would come to America, Bret Hart was booed. But Shawn Michaels would come out and he would hump the Canadian flag, he would stick it up his nose, he would wipe his butt with it, you name it. There wasn't a more hated person in Canada probably in the 90s than Shawn Michaels, and it's crazy because it made for some really great times. But I don't think that there was even another American that was as hated, throughout an entire country than Shawn Michaels in Canada. And that's that kind of heat you can't buy, and that's the kind of stuff that when you're a heel, they want. They want every heel to be like that, and they want every face to be cheered like Bret Hart was being cheered in Canada. So it's pretty amazing stuff, and I don't think that Shawn would have ever dreamed that he was going to be that hated during his run.
That's right, Jonathan. I mean, we've talked about some of these things briefly on other shows we've done, but I mean, just coming full circle about, especially the Heat show right now that we're doing, I want to talk about this one because this was probably a big one for a lot of little kids, with Hogan being the third man in the NWO. If we can all go back to that night, when you saw Hogan coming out to the ring, you're like, yes, finally, the good guy is going to put an end to this, and we're going to get something happy, and, it's like, yay, Hogan did it. But we didn't, Jonathan. I think that was the night Hulkamania died in our eyes, to where we saw the good guy become the bad guy. Jonathan, I mean, I can't think of anybody that has done a heel turn like this since, but this was pretty much the biggest one, I think, ever. Jonathan, I mean, Hogan being the third man, the NWO, turning against his fans. What do you think, man? It has to go on the Heatometer as what?
That's got to be at least a 90, I think, on the Heatometer. The best part about that was after the match, after the dust had kind of settled that he was the third man, and he was being interviewed by Mean Gene with Hall and Nash in the ring, and there was just so much garbage being chucked at everybody in that ring. Nash was like swatting it out of the sky. It was everything from like drink cups and cups full of pee, I heard, and bottles and paper and everything. And at one point it was so bad that Mean Gene said, like, this is what your career is going to be now. It's going to be garbage, just like what everybody's throwing at you. But I mean, that was some real heat. This is one of those times that you've never seen somebody who was beloved by, so many in the wrestling world. They never thought it was going to happen. But, Eric Bischoff definitely had the foresight to see that the times are changing and people liked more of the anti-hero or maybe the bad guy more than the good guy. And this was the right place, right time. Hulk Hogan became the third man, but he definitely had a lot of heat. And Hulk Hogan has just been a magnet for heat throughout his entire career. Some people say he's too good. Some people say he was never good. I mean, it runs the gamut with Hulk Hogan, and that's really what made this so impactful whenever he was the third man in the NWO.
Yeah, man, it definitely broke a lot of kids' hearts as their hometown, or not the hometown, but their hero, their idol, pretty much turned against all his fans. So that was a really big one, Jonathan. We're talking about some of the ones in the past, though, too. I want to remind everybody out there, just to make sure, tweet us at @WrestlingPod, @WrestlingPod. It's like another wrestling podcast, but you can't fit all those characters in there, so it's Wrestling Pod at Wrestling Pod. Tweet us. Maybe what was some of the biggest moments in pro wrestling history that could be on the Heatometer. What would you rank it? But we just want to hear from you once more, reminding everybody. Jonathan, a few more from the past, man. One thing I want to go to is, remember the return of Batista a few years ago? Where he came in and just nobody cared. They didn't want him, especially when there was rumbles talking about him winning the World Heavyweight Championship. Crazy, Jonathan. I mean, poor guy. Now he's getting all these movie roles in movies, but, he came back just to do a little run, and the fans just didn't want anything to do with him.
That was one of my favorite moments of the WWE was when Batista came back. He had a great run prior to that. He was coming back. He was a monster heel. He was going against John Cena. He was talking about how John Cena was kissing babies and hugging fat chicks, if you remember correctly. And then, a couple of years later, he comes back and they hate him. They just didn't like him. And you know what? Batista's never been the greatest wrestling technician, but I'll be damned if he hadn't gone out there and tried. And he was part of Evolution, a former world heavyweight champion. I mean, the guy's done it all, and for everybody to just crap on him was pretty ridiculous in my eyes. Listen, was it the right time for him to come back and get inserted into the storylines? Well, I mean, it depends on who you talk to, but I think it made an impact. He came back. But what's sad to me is that actually, if you watch the Batista documentary, it talks about him coming back, and he was so excited when he came back and all this stuff, and then everybody just kind of turned on him. But I would venture to say that we haven't seen the last of Batista, and I hope the next time around it's not so bad for the guy, because he's awesome. He was in Guardians of the Galaxy. He's been in James Bond. I know that there's another franchise of kickboxer that's coming back out that he's going to be in. So he's a mega star, and I really do believe that he's deserving to be in the WWE and maybe have one last good run.
That's right, Jonathan. We'll have to see, I guess. But there's been so many things in the past. Probably the last biggest thing we could talk about, Jonathan, happens to be with the Golden Boy, John Cena. Can you take us back a little bit, maybe to the one-night stand in 2006 with John Cena, and maybe even fast forward all the way until present day to where the heat remains with Cena somewhat?
Yeah, John Cena, for whatever reason, fans love to boo him, and I think it's because they're waiting to see him break. Like, he's taken it all in stride to this point, and John Cena back in 2006, the WWE champion. Rob Van Dam had won the Money in the Bank briefcase. He came out and said, listen, I'm going to fight you for that title, but I'm going to do it at One Night Stand. So he called his shot, in essence, and it was in New York City, rabid ECW fan base. RVD comes out, everybody loves him. In the rafters, you see these signs, if Cena wins, we riot, and I really believe it would have happened that night. And, John Cena comes out, he throws his shirt into the audience like always. It gets thrown back at him probably 6 or 7 times. The fans completely hated Cena that night. They were booing him. And wouldn't you know it, finally, Rob Van Dam wins. It was amazing. Everybody, feel-good moment of the year. John Cena walks out of there. But all the way till now, John Cena is the guy. He's been there. He's, definitely proven himself time and time again, but I think a lot of the fans feel like it's time, when you get guys like Kevin Owens, when you get guys like Cesaro that can go, even Seth Rollins and all this stuff, and they're tired of seeing the same people win. It's the same thing I hear all the time. I'm talking with friends, me and Steve are talking, whatever. You say, who do you want to see win the Rumble this year? Well, we don't want to see somebody who's won it before. Or who do you want to win the Money in the Bank? You don't want to see it. It's just because that there's other people out there that deserve a chance. So I think that Cena has taken a lot of the opportunities that came his way, but then they know that he can go, so they say, listen, we're going to put the belt on Cena because whatever. But a lot of the fans dislike that, and it ends up hurting him in his career. But it doesn't really hurt John Cena because he's making millions of dollars and selling T-shirts, and so he's fine. But fans just aren't a big fan of John Cena, which gets him probably the most heat I would say the most continuous heat of any wrestler that there's ever been.
That's right, Jonathan. Wow, what a show, Jonathan. It's I'm in my shorts right now. It's so hot today on Christmas. Crazy, Jonathan. I can't believe it's like this. We have Operation Global Force Warming happening right now, and the world is changing, I guess, and hopefully we'll see some snow in 2016, Jonathan. But wow, what a heated Christmas, huh?
Yeah, absolutely. And I just want to take the time right now to tell anybody who's listening, who's following us on social media, who's came up and talked to us in 2015, thank you so much. We wish you a very Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and 2016 is going to be another great year for us at another wrestling podcast. So thank you again.
And if you like our show, guys, make sure to check out some of our friends. Check out Main Event Marks. Head on over to Facebook.com/Main Event Marks. You can join Angry Cooter and his panel of smart Main Event Marks every Thursday at 9 p.m. for an uncensored show for the Marks, by the Marks.
That's right, and we are here to spread the wealth. If you love professional wrestling, we urge you to go over to pwpnation.com. PWP Nation is a wrestling media website and community that loves professional wrestling. They strive on creating an array of interesting articles and reviews on everything professional wrestling. Head on over to pwpnation.com.
Also, be sure to head on over to ProWrestlingSheet.com. It launched in August of this year, and it strives to report on the stories you actually care about in the world of professional wrestling, not just clickbait filling most news sites. Founder and editor-in-chief Ryan Satin previously worked as a senior producer for TMZ.com, where he has helped the company become a force in wrestling reporting, largely in part to his exclusive stories he landed on a constant basis. Make sure you head on over to ProWrestlingSheet.com.
Well, that's the show. We want to thank you all for listening today.
Every week we do this show free of charge for you, the fans.
If you're wondering how to repay us, we have just the thing.
Subscribe to us on iTunes, and while you're there, be sure to rate us and give us a good review.
And if you're looking for more information about AWP, then head on over to anotherwrestlingpodcast.com.
We are all over social media, and you can find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and more.
And if you're an AWP superfan, you can go show your support by going over to ProWrestlingTees.com and buying one of our official AWP shirts.
We couldn't do the show without you, so tune in next week for
Another Wrestling Podcast.